Good morning. Danielle is on the upswing of something, and so we are knowing good rest and quick healing for Danielle, which is why it's me and not Danielle. And why I forgot my glasses, because, I'm all here. So, I'm going to encourage you to take a nice deep breath. Breathe in the absolute beauty of this morning. The sun, the clouds, the warmth, the breeze. As you relax your breath, breathing out, relax your body. Allow yourself to settle comfortably in your seat. Take one more nice deep breath. And as you release that breath, be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin the inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now, symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner acceptance and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging the higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined, and I now forgive myself for all my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, now I say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only constructive, positive, loving, and peaceful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I am willing to accept as real for me in this coming week, visualizing the idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled, and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting peace in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. Family member, friend, mentor. Someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who's not physically present in the room this morning. Maybe not even on the planet anymore. And I turn to that image in mind and say, I am grateful for the good in your life. I now open my eyes to the world around me and turn joyfully to the person next to me, or on this broadcast, in that Zoom room, and share my gratitude and confidence by saying, I am grateful for the good in your life.
I am Jennings. I welcome you here today, where we're working through some ideas drawn from a book called Scientific Christian Mental Practice by Emma Curtis Hopkins. That's quite a title, isn't it? That right there that separates the serious student from the casual passerby. Scientific Christian Mental Practice. Holy mackerel, what does she mean by that? Well, the idea here is that in the process of prayer, meditation, there's a science going on. There's a principle that you can find and use. And she gives us her opinions about this, pointers on this in that book and in her book High Mysticism and in all of her class transcripts. She was a force to be reckoned with. She was a powerful female spiritual leader in the 1880s of America, where such a thing was virtually unheard of. There were two other women, one around her time and one preceding her, who the three of them are often, well, four if you add in Mary Baker Eddy, who was her teacher. The four of them, okay, are kind of the Mount Rushmore of female spiritual teachers of a new era or new thought mentality. The other two being Mother Ann Lee of the Shakers, who was late 18th, early 19th century, and the fourth being Helena Blavatsky of the Theosophical Society. All four of them were, their words, I like to put it this way, I heard somebody say this one time, their words were written in lightning across the page. Emma didn't write so much as she taught. Her teachings were gathered up later by her sister and others after her passing and then published. And everything that Emma taught, she taught in a sequence of 12s. So there are 12 chapters in everything that she did. And she took this from the 12 disciples, and she took this from the 12 signs of the zodiac, and she took it from 12 found throughout nature as a sacred number. And what I'm trying to do with you guys on Sunday is bring you some real practical information that she gives us about our faith practice today. All these many decades later, what is it we can do of a practical nature to enhance the quality of our prayer life and get along better with other people and just generally have more fun in the experience? So last week I was sharing with you some ideas she had about belief, where she said in so many words, and I paraphrase her and then I quote her from time to time directly, but she said in so many words that instead of trying to believe the whole enchilada, believe certain parts of it in terms of how you face life. In other words, when you hear that the universe is one whole system, fully present at every point within itself, that God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere, you hear all these big lofty ideas, you may go, whoa, I don't know that I can accept all of that. And I'll never forget, there was a guy who attended here, he's since passed, but there was a guy who attended this center for 30 plus years, and one Sunday he came up to me and he said, you know, after all this time, I'm actually starting to believe some of this stuff. And I thought, well, good for you. And you know, he was being funny and not, and I didn't take it wrong at all, because it's like, that's great that you're practicing, you're using your mind, you know, and you're not just believing what you hear because you hear it from somebody in a place that you like, around people that you like. You're actually sifting through that information and deciding whether it applies to you. What he never told me was which part of it he was believing and which part of it he wasn't. That would have been an interesting conversation, but we never got around to that. I don't care if you believe this, because I know that there's a power that believes in each one of us so completely that we have nothing to worry about in the long run anyway. So your engagement in this philosophy is entirely up to you. I know what I know, and you know what you know, and we agree on certain things, and that's swell. But here's her thinking was, so when presented with a whole life philosophy, a whole overarching system, it can seem daunting to have to accept the whole thing. She's saying, why don't you try this? Believe in belief. Believe in belief. And believe that if you're faced with a certain situation, a certain opportunity, a certain challenge, that you can decide how you'd like to have things turn out, and believe that they're going to. And believe that there's a power that's working through you to have that happen for the highest good of all concerned. You don't have to carve out a local private good to the expense of everybody else. Rather, everybody can benefit. Can you believe in that? Can you believe that you have what it takes to do what it is that you want to do? Because so often we suffer from a lack of self-confidence. And that was the other thing she went into a lot in our study of her last week, is about confidence. The idea of confidence is you have a secret knowing. You have an inner knowing that's yours and yours alone. You believe in something and you share it, and you believe that it's all going to come out right in the end in some way or other, and so you show up and put up. You show up and you do the thing. You go out, I always use the example, you go out for the part in the play. You go out for the part in the play. And then you get the part. And now it's like, oh my God, now I got to learn my lines. Now I got to learn my cues. Where am I supposed to stand? And what do I do when I get there? And what happens if I forget what I'm doing? And how do I, you know, and what is everybody else going to think of me? All the audience and the other people in the company, and how is all, and this would have been so much easier if I'd never gotten the part, right? This would have been so much better if I never got the job. I really like this job. It sounds great. It pays well. It's something I like to do. There's a corner office, stock options, whatever, you know. I'd really, son, ma'am, daughter, you got the job. You're hired. Congratulations. Now, here, sit. Now, but what if I screw up? What if I, oh no, or hey, I got the job and I'm good at the job and I know what I'm doing, and now they want to promote me and give me something else to do, give me new responsibilities. What am I going to do with that? What happens if I fail? I can't show my face in the world anymore. All of this is, we lie awake at night staring at the ceiling with all of this going on in our minds. Or even more ironic, I guess, is that we lie awake at night thinking about problems we don't have, as if we did. What if one day I get a job that I don't know how to, what if one day I, 20 years hence from now, and we lack the poise and the confidence to trust ourselves and to trust the process, so we really kind of don't try. Conversation came up online the other night about when we hold back from using what we know, when we hold back from using things like affirmative prayer, because what if this time it doesn't work? I will be so disappointed, especially if I've told all my friends about it, especially if I have a whole cohort of people and we're all engaged in the philosophy together. What if this time it doesn't work? One way to make sure I'm never faced with the humiliation of it not working is to not use it. Just save it. We do this a lot of times with our faith. We'll say, one day I may need this, and so I'm going to keep this. We become hoarders of faith. We become, right, the little twisty things off bread wrappers, and do you have, everyone I know says, and if they don't, they're lying, has a drawer full of these things, little twisty things, because someday they may stop making them, like pennies. You will need one, and you will need one of a certain color and length and width, just so, and nothing else will do. And so by the time you're X number of years old, you have thousands of these things. You have way more paper clips in your home than you're ever going to need, especially because we're not using that much paper anymore. Okay? Do you have old postage stamps? Do you remember soaking postage stamps off envelopes so that you could re-glue them and use them again? Have you ever? Right? We have all kinds of debris, all kinds of, detritus that we store up because one day we might need it, and that day will probably never come. We sort through all of this. Why not employ these things now, or why not just clean out the drawers, clean out the attics, clean out all of the bulk of stuff that has been accumulated. Now, how does that apply to us metaphysically? I think of it as opinion. I have more opinions on stuff that I don't need, that nobody's ever asked for, and nobody ever will. And I'd really love to share them sometime, but nobody cares. I don't even care. But I was trained in gathering opinions because it makes you look clever and in charge of your life, So we have heads full of trivial facts. I sit there sometimes and watch a game on TV, and I explain to myself the infield fly rule and things like, who cares, I don't play. All of the what they call it inside baseball, all of the little stuff, around things that we accumulate in case one day we need it. This gets in the way. This gets in the way of being spontaneous in the moment. How you have the confidence to face something, as we discussed last week, is basically you make it up. You decide, I'm enough. One of the great pieces of advice that I got was to realize that other people care far less about what we're doing and how we look and what we're thinking and so on than we think they do. And once you realize that, you can kind of relax. When I was starting out as a public speaker, one of the pieces of advice they give you, you know this, you've heard this before, is imagine the audience naked. This was in a different time. That's crossing some lines now, but this was in a different time when they said that. Well, I tried that exactly once. And I looked at the audience and I thought, no, what if I'm naked? Oh my God, then this is awful. I can't do this. Plus, I completely forgot what I was talking about. Instead, what I do now is when I speak to an audience, I realize that what most people are thinking about is what's for lunch. Most people are thinking about what they have to do tomorrow or how they're going to play this. And they check back in with what is being said from time to time, every few minutes. It kind of crosses the field of vision. The idea is to put the word out there, and it's received however it's received. It settles like snow, across the landscape. We make it too dramatic. What we're doing, we have this big thing called success in one direction and this big emptiness called failure in the other. And it's never that simple, and it's never that, dramatic. It just isn't. There's no final failure. There's no final success. Once you achieve something, it's time to start something else, right? Once you create something, Emma Hopkins finished a class. Wow, that was, I took everything I had, wrung me out like a rag, and she sits down, well, you have another one tomorrow or next week or something. There's always something more to do. So what we need is what I call a through line, and I shared that with you too, is to have a through line of conviction, a through line of something that you can revisit and say, okay, what do we do today? What's next, Spirit? What's next for me? How do I next show up in the world and do what there is that needs to be done? So, to have conviction, To have confidence in yourself means you make it up. You don't have to prove it to anybody else. You just show up and you speak your truth and you see what happens. And what will happen is your mental atmosphere will draw to you people, conditions, and circumstances that are conducive to your growth and theirs. You will have in your life mentors and I guess you call them mentees. Or maybe mentos. No, that's something else. But you'll have people who teach you stuff in an informal kind of way by modeling it for you, and you will model for other people certain things about how you are. People will watch you, people will listen to you for cues and stuff, not obsessively and not full of judgment like we often think they're doing, but everybody's looking for an inside track in some way, and they want to see, what's going on. I'm looking across the room as I come in here this morning, and I see that Chip back there and Jeffrey over here wearing the same kind of hat, and I think to myself, maybe I should get one of those hats. That's a nice looking hat, especially for a man like myself who doesn't have a lot on top to start with, and maybe I should do that. So I'm looking at that. They had nothing to do with that. That's just an observation that you make. We're constantly looking for pointers and signals and things. We're looking for symbols and signs, from above, and it's really much simpler and much more down here on the ground than we've tried to make it before. So what she's getting to in this week's reading of her is about when you speak the word for somebody in prayer. Again, you don't have to take it to the big dramatic cosmic level. You can simply give them a word of encouragement, a hearty, simple, cheerful word. She says a hearty, simple, cheerful word will mean the world to people. A smile does more than a lecture. Always. Remember what Maya Angelou said, that people may or may not remember what you say. They will always remember how you make them feel. Well, how do you make somebody feel? Well, often it's not verbally, by explaining things to them. And she says, Emma, when I say she and I do this, that means Emma Hopkins, when she says that you will get to the point in your spiritual work where you don't rely on science with a capital S, meaning Christian science, meaning doctrine. You won't rely on doctrine because you will have so embodied doctrine that you don't need to revisit doctrine. You don't need to go to chapter and verse. And we've discussed this before. The great healers of the ages, Jesus the Christ being chief amongst them in our thinking, is he often just knew something inside himself without a lot of explanation. And physicality, materiality responded. People got well. People picked up their mat, and walked. And he just had this, he didn't have to go through this long explanation, even silently. There's one life, that life is God, that life is here, it's doing this and this. He just knew. He just knew. She said, so you can compact your spiritual knowing through what? Regular practice. It becomes habit. Think of all the things that you do habitually in your life that one time were difficult. One I always come back to is driving a car. You remember when you were a little kid? They drove you around in the car. You looked at the car, you looked at how they drove, and you thought, this is impossible. I don't know how anybody does this. They're moving all their hands, especially in the days of a clutch, right? They're doing this, pulling that, and I don't know how well then when you learn, right? Now it's, if you get in the car and you overthink it, then it's kind of like, oh, wait, But when you just trust muscle memory, you know what you're doing. Think of all the things that you do like that you could do in your sleep, that you know your way around your house, you know the way all your appliances work, and so forth. Well, why not look at spiritual practice the same way that you can develop that level of familiarity with it where you just know and you speak your word? And then finally this, she brings up this point. She says, When you are working with a client, or she called them patients, and bearing in mind here that much of her writing was directed at spiritual practitioners, she was teaching teachers. And the leaders, the founders of the principal New Thought denominations were at one time or another, in one way or another, her students, literally and in person. That's why she's called the teacher of teachers. But more than that, it's because in all her body of work, it wasn't just that little group of people. In all her body of work, she's teaching people how to teach. She's teaching you how to practice, how to be an agent of healing in the world. She says when you have a client, call them clients, when you have a client come to you and they have an ailment of some kind, they have a lack of some kind, an emptiness of some kind in their life, rather than getting all involved in what that lack is, or even getting all involved in what the fulfillment of that lack would be, the answer to the problem, she said, talk to them about summertime. Talk to them about sunlight. Talk to them about how the light filters through the trees. Talk to them about how the birds sing in these happy moments and so on. Talk to them about snowfall. Talk to them about their memories. When was a time when you were really happy and carefree? When was a time when you knew that everything was working out for good? When was a time when you were excited about the day and the day to come and the day after that? When was a time? When was a time? And you get them thinking about this. And she said, this will heal. This will restore. Because it invites in a different thought atmosphere. Literally an atmosphere. A different atmosphere. The clouds lift like an atmosphere, right? The fog drifts away, burns off in the sunlight. Something new happens. You've introduced a new idea here. And people are like, yeah, you know, that's right. And all of a sudden, that's where they are. All of a sudden, that's where their thinking is. And that's where their feeling is. And it gives the problem permission to change. Sometimes when we focus even on the solution to the problem, we're embedding the problem. We're feeding it energy without intending to. Through no fault of our own, it's what we were taught. Through no fault of the people who taught us. It's what they were taught. It's just what we came to somehow. In dealing with materiality and trying to figure out how all of this works. So she says, think about something happy that happened to you. And go into that feeling and just sit there for a few minutes. And you, the practitioner, you're not just witnessing this. She says, well, you're doing this. Well, you're having your client do this. You do this too. You go into a space of happiness. You go into a space of bliss about your own life and your own experience. And suddenly the two of you are in this thought atmosphere of greater and greater good. Now, I could stand here all day and we could keep ourselves here all day debating on how this works. What if somebody tries and it doesn't work? And I want to just float the idea. Let's try it this week. Try it this week. Pick a problem. Pick a problem that you have in your life. Something that you're working to figure out. It doesn't have to be a big problem. It doesn't have to be a little problem. It doesn't have to be any kind of size problem at all. Something, a challenge, whatever you want to call it, a possibility that seems maybe remote. And in looking at it, bring in summertime. If you're a Texan and summertime isn't all that to you, bring in fall or spring or maybe even winter. You know what I'm saying. Bring in something that's pleasurable to you. Bring in sailing, for crying out loud. Sailing is wonderful. Bring in an idea of just being out on the bay in this boat, and you don't have to worry about who's sailing the thing and who's raising the sails and who's charting the course and who's paying for all this. You let all of that be. Just sail. Just be, in a sense, be like a little kid. Little kids don't worry about how much is all this costing. We have to teach them that. You know, Christmas is like, this is expensive and it's a lot of work. Well, when you're a little kid, you don't know that, and we don't want the little kids to know that. We want it to be just completely magical for them. Well, there's a part of us that still feels that way and can feel that way and evoke that part around that experience of the issue that you're having, or maybe have that issue be the thing that provokes this occurring within you. But meditate on that in your meditation time rather than simply the outcomes of the problem, and how good you'll feel when your troubles go away and go into the part of you that has already felt that good. It's still there. And it's sitting, if you will, in the drawers of the kitchen of your soul. Like the little twisty things that come on bread wrappers that you don't need. But it's sitting there and it's useful. It's an implement that you haven't picked up in a really long time. This positive mental imagery of bliss and peace and happiness and joy. And watch what happens. And the first thing that will happen, and you'll tell me all the rest when we get back together again next week, but the first thing that will happen for you is metabolic. Your blood pressure will lower, okay? Your heart rate will calm. The endocrine system and all the different parts of you. I'm not a medical person, so I can't name them all, but something will happen through you. You'll feel peaceful. You'll feel still. You'll feel calm. You'll feel poised. You'll feel right, okay? And then watch what all flows from there. Emma Curtis Hopkins, Scientific Christian Mental Practice. Check it out. Powerful stuff. More to come in the weeks to come. Let's know together now. One life, one power, one presence, pure spirit. Made this beautiful day. Made this sweet season of gratitude for what's so and what has been. A great mind said that for all that has been, thanks, and for all that will be, yes. And to that we'll add, for all that is now. What do we say about that? For all that is now, we'll say, I am. I am that I am. In this moment of now, this holy instant, this moment that expands into eternity. It's the doorway to infinity. This one. And in this place, I fill myself with emotions of calm and trust and peace, with the beautiful things, the things that inspire me, that uplift me. I remember them. I remember standing in awe, gazing out at nature. I remember sweet seasons of time. I remember people who've passed through my life and the fun that we shared. I remember this. And there's so much there that I don't remember. But it's there somewhere. And it recurs to me at just the right time. A familiar tune, long forgotten, comes to me through my mind or through external means, which are aspects of my mind as well. For there is but one mind, one field of knowing. I'm filled with calm, I'm filled with trust, I'm filled with big creative ideas that I can fearlessly pursue. And for this, for the knowing of this, for this sweet morning together and for all that comes from it, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done, and so it is.
All right, so as we come up to giving time, I just ask you to remember once again, please be generous with our center. It costs a lot of money to keep this center going every month, and we believe that the message that we send to the world is worthwhile supporting. So please consider that. Thank you for your donations, and now say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I'm prosperous now, and so it is. When we do prayer here, as most of you know, just a reminder, we don't do begging prayers, and we don't do bargaining prayers. Like when you were a kid, you would say maybe, hey God, if you will just do this for me, I won't be mean to my mother for a week, that kind of thing. We don't do begging prayers. We do spiritual mind treatment, sometimes it's called treatment or affirmative prayer. And we do this because we are all connected, we're all one. And Reverend Jesse mentioned Jesus just knowing. Jesus, if you read the scriptures, never pleaded, hey, Father God, would you do this for me? He just claimed what it was. So when he wanted Lazarus to come out of the tomb, he didn't say, hey, Father, would you please bring Lazarus out of the tomb? No, he simply said, Lazarus, come out, because he just knew. So this is the form of prayer. And it's ironic that you were talking about change the world in your song, because what came to me this morning was the statement of Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who was a Jesuit. He was a theologian. He wasn't very popular with the Vatican because of the way he thought about the universe. And he said, and this is paraphrasing him, he said, when humankind has conquered the wind, the waves, the tides, and gravity, humanity will conquer for God the energies of love, and then for the second time in the history of the world, we will have discovered fire. So let's just know this together. I know that there's one life, one presence that flows through everything. It's flowing through me. It's flowing through each and every person here in person and online. And because I know this, I know that the power that flows through me is available to me. And I am one with this power. And therefore I can claim in all sincerity that this power is love. And I claim that this love is flowing through each and every one here. And as it flows through each and every one here, I am knowing it is flowing through the human race. And I claim that the human race is moving towards that point which Pierre Teilhard de Chardin called the Omega point. I claim that humanity is now turning the corner. It is beginning to move in the direction of love. And as we move in the direction of love, I claim that we leave aside all enmity, all hurt, all harm. And we push this to one side and we focus on love. So I can claim for each and every one here that love is the center of their being, that love is the center of my being. And in this knowingness and in this oneness, in gratitude for this, in gratitude for all good things in life, I release my word into a divine law that always, always must say yes. And so it is.
So it is. Say with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is. All right. Oh, that was great, y'all.